Hans Niemann just played the meme of the century. Not the game of the century, but the meme of the century. It is an 85 move game against none other than Abihmanyu Mishra, who is currently on a 71 undefeated streak until this game happened, and he got checkmated by a pawn. Hans absolutely trolled him. I hope the chess world loves what Hans just did, right? Abihmanyu had the right to resign. He chose not to. This is hilarious. This is never seen in top level chess. Who other than Hans would do this? Guy could have made a queen and he like plays 20 more moves just to troll and checkmate with a pawn. And we're going to breeze through the game. The endgame is very composition-like. It's one of the most beautiful endgames I've ever seen, actually. We're going to discuss it. So, the endgame, beautiful. The opening, good stuff to know. We get an Italian. We get a mainline Italian. Preemptive thinking, right? Fischer-esque, bishop to b3, bishop to b6. You get the knights dancing around, and we get our first imbalance of the game. A knight gets traded for a bishop. This bishop is on c2, right? The point is to go d4 and aim over here. These Italian games, whoever gets d4, d5 in first has equalized, and we get d4, b5, h3, stopping anything from coming to g4. We get some pawn movements. We're breezing through the middle game. Black connects his rook. White goes knight to d2. A nice move, opening up maybe the queen to coming to f3. But Abihmanyu spends some time here, about 19-20 minutes, and strikes successfully, correctly rather, in the center. You get the square of pawns that is always too hard to calculate, except not for them. Except not for them. We get queen f4, g3, so this game is going to spice up. For a moment, it looks like Abihmanyu is just going to wipe pawns off the board. We get another exchange, pawn to f4, and find the brilliant move here. Find the best continuation that Abihmanyu did indeed find. Knight takes f4. A blunder that's good. In other words, a sacrifice. He gives up a knight for 2 pawns, but it's actually going to be 3 pawns. What should you play in this position? I think 99 out of 100 people are taking this pawn. Correctly so. Right? You would get a fascinating game where white has no resources around his king. There are a lot of pieces on the board. It's going to be hard for white to play this position. Okay, granted it's equal, but it's a 3-result game. But for some reason, Abihmanyu takes the pawn on e4, and this forces a queen trade for white. Now, black has 3 pawns for the piece, which is usually more than enough. However, these pawns are so slow, they're about as far away from promoting as they possibly can be. Not to mention, black is going to have back rank issues, and it's going to be even harder to push the pawns because you have 2 rooks on the board and you need your king to stay safe. Hans is a troll. By the way, Abihmanyu is on a 71 undefeated streak, and then I was like, what's the biggest win streak in chess? Because you hear about like the 180, 120 undefeated streaks, but then like 80% of them are draws. Still unbelievable. But I was like, what's the biggest win streak in chess? And apparently it's held by Bobby in the year 2019, a 7-game win streak. So in top level chess, a 7-game win streak is the biggest win streak, 2,600 plus. I don't know what 2,700 plus highest win streak is. Magnus, you would think he holds the record, but his is actually 6. 1 game less than Fabi's. Knight to d6, deflection tactic, right? Rook takes knight, free knight, except you get check and mated. This game is heating up. We get a rook trade, pawn to b6. And now Hans elects to go bishop to f5. He's like, okay, let's trade bishops. I have a knight. And it's you know, this like you should play this position out with a computer, for example. Like you should just see where it goes. Right? +1, but what does that mean? It's a knight for 3 pawns, but you have the better king. Very fascinating position. Abihmanyu goes king to f8. He's like, trade on my terms. Hans is like, okay, I'm fine. Open board, bishop, long range piece. Let's do it. We got rook to e4, rook to b4, correct. Correct. Trying to go c4. He goes bishop to f1, strikes with c4. And the point is, if this pawn is taken, which pawn do you take? I heard double isolated pawns are pretty bad, so that's what he goes for. Or that's what would have been gone for, rather. Boom. Pawn c4, we get a pin. right? This would no longer be a winning endgame because these pawns are now double isolated. And that's not the best, as we discussed. So we get a check. We get another check. He blocks. Fascinating position. Fascinating position. King guards the double isolated pawn. White activates the king. And now black's pawns are indeed getting rolling. Rook t4, the human move. They wanted king to d5, giving up a pawn. Gives up the double isolated pawn. And okay, Abihmanyu is doing quite well. Look at this. King f2. Can you believe this is the wrong square for the king? You're like, I want to stop these 2 pawns from... Look at these. Are we going to get 3 pawns, 1 away from promoting? Would you rather have black or white in this position? Yeah, but king f2 apparently incorrect. You had to go king e2 for reasons amongst the d file against the king and the rook. But he doesn't. He goes king f2. Very sensible, very human-like. We get pawn to g3. King e5 was correct. But okay, pawn to g3. Abihmanyu with 7 minutes on the clock. Hans with 41. And the time is what allowed this to become a cinematic masterpiece incoming. We get a check, king d4, bishop e2, pawn c5, and it looks like the game has fizzled out to a draw. Abihmanyu goes rook to b6, and Hans has to essentially go for a perpetual, or feel the wrath of 4 passed pawns incoming. We get pawn to c4, Abihmanyu going for the win. Abihmanyu going for the win. Check, Hans scoop a pawn. But we get 2 pawns. What is this position? 3 passers versus 2 passers, but why is this so complicated? The more you look at this, the harder it gets. And that's how you know it's a beautiful position. That's how you know it's a beautiful position. Check, pushing the king back. We get a5 question mark, but it's actually the best move. Engine doesn't know what's happening. Find the only try for black here. What would you play in this position? So all the moves Abihmanyu made that were a mistake this game were pawn moves. And he goes g2. Pushes the wrong pawn. Look at this. He had to go h5, and I really don't know how you win this. There's some shuffle along the 7th. But look at this. Very cool. If push, it looks like we're promoting first with check, except they are promoting first with check. Boom and boom. Very puzzle-like. Deflection. So Abihmanyu goes pawn to g2, and Hans plays the next 10 move sequence, only winning sequence, and then he memes. So I hope you guys stayed for the meme, because this is hilarious. Why did I go past that so fast? This is important. We get a check. We get bishop to d5, because you have to get rid of f3. f3 is the thorn in the position. Abihmanyu best try going for this, and Hans brilliantly sacrifices the bishop. The point is, if rook takes pawn, bishop takes, you're just up a whole bishop, and it's not a rook pawn, and you're going to put your rook behind it and promote it. So Abihmanyu takes it. What's the only winning move? Where do rooks belong? Behind passed pawns. Abihmanyu tries to catch up to the pawn. We get pawn to b4, pawn to b5. The pawns are just too quick. Any normal human being that is not an alien, that is not Hans Niemann, plays pawn to a6 and black just resigns. And this is not what happened, and I'm positive this is what would happen if anybody other than Hans Niemann were playing this game. This is just Zooks 1. Take, push, promote. They go back, you push, you checkmate with a rook. But Hans checked his files, and he forgot how to checkmate with a rook. So he couldn't go for that. So he goes for this. And this. An a6. What is this? What is this? It is Zooks 1. This is like... This is crazy. This is so hilarious. The fact that he went... The rook can't move off the back rank because he gets checkmated. And black's king can't go away from the pawns because they promote. So you're like, why is Abihmanyu not resigning? Who knows? Out of respect, out of hope of a stalemate? Who knows? What do you do here to win? You just bring your king up and trade rooks. You just bring your king up, slide your rook, bring your king up, trade rooks, win the game. But Hans is an alien. So he starts traveling all the way to the left. Then he moves his rook. What? This is Awesome. I applaud this behavior. Rook to cinema. He sacrifices his rook. Who does this? Who does this? Check. If king a7 takes, that's a stalemate, which is why he grabbed a bishop out of his hand 5 moves ago, and he would have done this. He would have done this. Because he's an absolute sicko, he would have done this. Checkmate with a pawn. So, we get king b6. Rook goes to... Checkmate? Is this not ridiculous? This is ridiculous. Hans Niemann? Do you guys have him winning the US chess championship? Do you support this behavior? I support this behavior. If this ruins your day, have the day you deserve. That's all I gotta say. Thank you as always for watching. I'll probably see you tomorrow. Peace.